Hey YouTubers. Alright, I got the brand new MTH-9 NHO. These just came out. This is the Horsehead scheme for Norfolk Southern. I intend on getting a couple of the other schemes. I mainly wanted this one because this is the most recent scheme from Norfolk Southern, and this is the one that you pretty much will see the most of if you're watching Norfolk Southern. This is kind of the definitive diesel for Norfolk Southern. They have about 1,100 of these, which are all painted up pretty much the same way now. It's very rare that you see a Norfolk Southern train that doesn't have at least one -9 on it. It's a pretty rare sight if you don't see that. And I'm here in Pennsylvania, so Norfolk Southern's kind of the home team, I guess you could say. So I pretty much do primarily Norfolk Southern, so it's kind of like my home railroad. But most of what I do is Norfolk Southern, so decided to pick this one up. I'm probably going to also get the Santa Fe and also the Southern Pacific scheme. Unfortunately, this is the only road number that they actually do in the Horsehead scheme. The other two they do is kind of the early 2000s, late 90s scheme, where the silk stripe is kind of dotted. It's not solid. It also doesn't have the thoroughbred logo. Unfortunately, this is just the only one that they make in this particular road number. Hopefully in the future they'll do more. In many ways, this is very, very similar to the recent release of the ES44s that MTH has done. There are some differences, and for the most part, they're very, very good differences. So first off, this is probably one of the few times that I'm going to talk about packaging, because I think that's kind of a dull subject that people spend too much time on. But one thing I do want to point out with that is this is the ES44 packaging, which if you've purchased these, you kind of know what I'm talking about here, and you can see that these stupid styrofoam blocks, they just fall out of here. This is a brand new one I just got this weekend, and they're already falling off. So you have to re-glue these on, and they don't really stay on. It's kind of a pain. So with the newer ones on the -9, they actually eliminated that stupid styrofoam. And now they just have these little humps here that kind of serve the same purpose. Also, on these, they have these stupid little rubber things here which also fall off. And again, on this, they went a little more simplified and they don't have that. So, pretty nice change there that they made. But back to the actual train. Just taking a look at this one, there are a couple improvements over the ES44s. And I'll compare it to the actual ES44 here. So these are both MTH. So some of the improvements that are here is, one, the walkways on the ES44s are not treaded, nor are they treaded on the sides here, or up front, or in the back. On the -9, I don't know how well you can see it there, they actually have the treaded walkways now, so that's pretty cool. I mean, the railings are pretty much the same type of material, so not a whole lot of difference there. Still have all the same details on here. Very, very bright factory LEDs as well, as you've come to expect from pretty much all MTHs at this date and time. I mean, as far as detail, these I think are really unmatched. If you take a look at particularly Norfolk Southern and their -9s, there's really only other two companies in general that have even made -9s, which is going to be Athearn. They first did it in the early 90s with the blue boxes, and then they did a little bit better version with the ready-to-runs. However, they're still massively incorrect for most railroads, especially Norfolk Southern. The Athearn one, actually, their ditch lights aren't even the proper high ones. They actually have them as lower ditch lights, and they also have a nose headlight instead of an actual headlight up there. So the MTH got that part right. Now on some of the other West Coast railroads, they're a little bit more closer to right. However, Athearn pretty much screwed up the Norfolk Southern ones pretty bad. They're not a very good version, not to mention the motors also not very good. And of course, their details are also very flimsy as well. These are a lot more solid. Um, and then pretty much the only other company to do the Dash 9s, just trying to even think here, is going to be Kato. And they really haven't done much, probably in about the past 10 years, as far as newer paint schemes out there. So they did an NS-9, but it was pretty much the early 90s scheme where pretty much they didn't even have a sill stripe. Almost nothing in the front at all is white at all. They definitely don't have that particular striping there, and also they have the older NS logo. But they never did anything in the later schemes, so I mean, yes, you can get one of those and you can re-decal and paint the entire thing. That's certainly not something that I want to do, and even if you do that, again, the ditch lights are not correctly placed, and also they lack most of the detail that this has. So, without saying, I mean, it's pretty much easily the best Norfolk Southern Dash 9 that any company has done to this point. Some of the other details here on the locomotive, the weight, of course, is very good, just as the ES44s are. Pulling power is excellent. Drivetrain's very smooth, very quiet. All factory LEDs, again, something else that you don't get with Athearn. They also give you, of course, the factory KDs on the DCC ready version, which is what I got. On the DCS, or the Proto Sound 3 version, which is a little bit more in cost, they go generally for around $230 or so. You may be able to do better than that by a couple dollars, but probably not by a whole lot. With those, it's better than what they've done on the Gevos. I still prefer the lock sound as a whole. There are a couple of hurdles which I'll get into with that. As far as getting the alternating ditch lights, that's pretty much the exact same procedure as what it is on the ES44s, which I've covered in a previous video. I'm going to do this as a three-part series, so this is the first part where we basically just cover kind of the looks of the locomotive. And then I'm going to do a video which is basically covering the install, which I don't have fully straightened out just yet. And then we'll also have one where you get to see it actually run and all the different lighting effects, along with the different sounds that are in there. So this is just the first part here where we're just covering the detail of it. Which I think they did an absolutely fantastic job on. So, as an NS guy, I'm pretty satisfied. I think they did, I mean, outside of maybe Overland, even with them, I don't think they could have done a much better job than this. This is pretty dead on. I don't really think there's any details that are severely left out that I can see. I mean, short of offering one that's factory weathered, I don't really think you can make it look a whole lot more realistic. So, I think in terms of an overall model, as far as cost, detail, performance, the looks, I'd say this is a solid 9.5 out of 10, maybe even a 10 out of 10. I don't really think you could do any better of a job on this. So hats off to MTH. They really did a good job with this one. The Proto Sound 3 one, like I said, it is a little bit closer to an actual Dash 9 as far as the sounds. They got a lot of it right. They definitely got the horn right. All the ditch lights perform just as they're supposed to. I'm having some issues in getting the rear ditch lights to actually flash on F2. I believe it's possible, and if I'm not able to do it, I'm probably just going to wire in some new LEDs for the rear. But that'd be a problem that I tackle here in the next week or so as I do part 2, which is the lock sound installation. I've already taken it apart and done a lot of it, but we'll cover that in the next part of the videos here. But that's it for the part 1 here, so we'll see you again in a couple days.